Hello from me as a speaker now, and thank you for the invitation. So, I'm gonna talk to you about nutrition for sustainable future. So, let's define sustainable nutrition refers to food systems that are healthy, while they are a good thing for the environment. So, for children, if we focus, we also have to ensure that their dietary needs are also met. A holistic approach considers health, environmental impact, education, accessibility, and cultural relevance. And why do we bother? Because environment is changing, climate is changing, and we do have a responsibility for this because we are consumers. We produce carbon dioxide, which is one of the basic gases for greenhouse gas emission. Global food production then accounts for up to 30% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, 60% of biodiversity loss, 70% of freshwater use, and it has a significant impact on soil quality, deforestation, eutrophication, and climate change. Here you can see a graph where you can see the impact of different products. And as you can see, beef, for example, or dairy products has a really large impact on the greenhouse gas emissions compared to nuts or legumes, for example. This is also obvious from this table, where we can compare the production of the same amount of a vegetable protein, like tofu protein, with an animal-based protein, like beef protein. And at this point, we can see that there is a decrease by 74 times less land use, 8 times less water use, 25 times less greenhouse gas emissions, and by 39 times less eutrophication. So you can see that decreasing the animal-based foods in our diet, that goes hand in hand with a decrease in the dietary environmental impact. If we want to have a broader image, then we can see at the food life cycle what we see here. We see food and agriculture, transportation, urban design, and land use as the major systems driving the global syndemic. So we can understand that if we decrease the consumption of animal products, we can have a decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, but at the same time, although we might have decided to consume lots of vegetables, we have to be very serious by deciding to consume those that are locally produced or they're seasonal, so to avoid all the air pollution that comes from the transportation of these food products. So this gives us a good thing of how to decide what we're going to consume. So climate change, as we can understand, is in a very complex relationship with food production and also with dietary patterns that we have. And it also has a role acting in both ways, as a driver and as an outcome of food systems. What do I mean? If the climate change, which is a fact at the moment, we have a decrease in the production of veggies and fruits, then the prices go up, then they become not affordable to lots of people, then these people are shifted in their dietary pattern to a more obesogenic foodstuffs, and obesity increases, which increases anyway because we have a very high temperature and we are not able to be very physically active. From the other side, we have population, the increase in the population, the demand for animal food, especially in low middle income countries, which then brings about climate change. So we have to look for sustainable diet. This is what also the 17 Sustainable Developmental Goals tell us. This has to do with United Nations member states, their meeting in 2015, and their decision for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This is calling for an engagement of all the countries, developed and developing, in a global partnership. They recognize the ending of poverty and other deprivations that must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, spur income growth, and all while tackling climate change. Especially for children, the agenda says for the goal 2 that we have to look to end hunger and achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. However, until 2022, what we see is that 1/10 of the world's population faces hunger and that 2.4 billion people experience moderate to severe food insecurity. This review of Victoria Panthers in 2021 show us that although we are trying hard, there is still a very unacceptably high prevalence of undernutrition for both women and children in low-income and middle-income countries. As you can see, we have an increase in wasting. I cannot show you now. You can see the blue color, an increase in both low-income countries and middle-income countries from 2000 to 2015. So child malnutrition is still of public health concern. We have undernutrition, overnutrition, and also hidden hunger. 3.40 million children under 5 suffer from hidden hunger, and especially in low middle-income countries. And only 1/4 of countries are on track to meet the targets. So we are far away from achieving these goals. What we have to do? We have to look to improve our diets, our nutrition, our health, and our hygiene, so to meet these goals and halve the number of children suffering from chronic undernutrition. We have to look for sustainable nutrition diets. What are the key aspects of this? It's balanced diet, plant-based diet, hydration, culturally appropriate foods, local and seasonal foods, food waste reduction, understanding food systems, and engage in food choices. If we manage to integrate these principles from an early age, we can promote healthier lifestyles, we can ensure that children receive the nutrition they need, while also promote a healthier planet for a future generation. And where to start from? We have a problem even for inappropriate infant and young child feeding practices. Why is this? Socioeconomic, commercial, and political contexts impact household socioeconomic status, knowledge of caregivers, access to healthcare, and food insecurity. What we end up with? Undernutrition and overnutrition, short-term and medium and long-term effects like morbidity, mortality, and chronic diseases. For example, because we do need to know where all this come from, here we have a scoping review of Bastian and partners that they are trying to see what are the main reasons for mothers and households with children until the age of 6, and what we see very huge economical problems regarding income and employment and social risk factors. So, regarding sustainability, we have to focus on breast milk because it has zero environmental footprint or food waste and also decreases the possibility of childhood obesity. Whereas infant formula, it has an environmental cost. For example, the production of 1 kilo of milk powder uses 4,500 liters of water and emits 21.8 calories of carbon dioxide. But what we do know is that the rates of breastfeeding and duration still is suboptimal. Conversely, commercial milk-based formula sales is increasing and has increased a lot from 2005 to 2019. About complementary feeding and sustainability that starts from 4 months or younger, we have to focus on minimally processed foods because the tendency is ultra-processed foods due to industrialization, globalization, socioeconomic, commercial, and political factors and affordability, and also encourage the consumption of diverse minimally processed plant foods with appropriate amounts of animal-sourced foods, like, for example, a Mediterranean pattern. This way, we will be able to diminish the amount of resources used, like manufacturing, packaging, and distribution. What do we know about dietary patterns generally, and not only for the first months of life? According to the United Nations, we are still in unbalanced diets, so approximately 2 billion cases exist for national nutritional deficiencies, 800 million cases for hunger, 2 billion cases of overweight and obesity worldwide. And we are still, most of us, consuming a Western-style diet. But we have to find a plant-based diet, lots of different types. We have vegetarian diets, pescatarian diets that also include fish, flexitarian diet that has also a small amount of animal products, and territorial diets that also include local and seasonal food. So studies have shown us that all countries, developed and developing, could be under nutritionally balanced diets if they are vegetarian diets, but we have to pay attention. And if we recommend this kind of changes, then we have to follow the baseline diets of every country, food availability and preferences, local culture and traditions, national targets, so, to minimize the number of food changes that we're going to recommend and maximize acceptability and long term compliance. What about meat for children? We know that's a really good source for iron, zinc, it's a good source for protein, and it's also a very good weapon for malnutrition. However, we also know that it might lead to excess of energy, excess of animal fat, of saturated fats, even it predisposes to colorectal cancer. So, can we recommend it for children? Of course, there are lots of health benefits. We know that it decreases the risk of childhood obesity, increases consumption of fruits and veggies, decreases intake of total fat, cholesterol, and blood pressure. However, we also have to pay attention if we recommend it to low middle income countries where there might be no access to certain foods, supplements, or nutrition education because we might still have deficient problems. The recommendations, if we start from the early life, are breastfeeding, as we said before, for sustainability, exclusive breastfeeding, and it can be even until 12 months together with complementary feeding. If we do not have this possibility, then we have to go to commercial infant formula and not to plant milks. When we are introducing complementary foods, we can still use the standard practices. Vegetable protein instead of pure meats, for example, pure beans or tofu, and after the first year, and probably fortified soy or pea protein milk or dairy milk can be started. Here is another review that shows us that actually a vegetarian diet impacts positively or has no impact to things that we might think and wonder in order to suggest such a diet. There is only our attention on iron, as I said before, B12 and iodine. Whereas vegan diets, although they have a positive impact in body fat and CVD risk, then we have to be even more careful because probably we need fortifications. This is another review that shows us that even meat eaters have deficiencies if they don't have a varied diet. So we could probably recommend a vegetarian diet to children and look at the specific micronutrients. Which are these? More specifically, iron and zinc. So we are using fortified foods and supplements. But if these children follow a varied and balanced diet, then this not be a problem. We could recommend iodized salt, seafood, and dairy products for iodine. For vitamin B12, we need annual checkups and probably need supplements and fortified foods, especially for breastfeeding infants when the pregnant mother is vegan. For calcium, most of the problems are in vegans. Again, we have to choose fortified products. And for vitamin D, in order to recommend supplements, we need to know the age and the sun exposure. And it has to do with the dietary choices. What about protein? Vegan children seem to need more protein. However, if the diet is of adequate energy intake and there is a variety of plant protein sources, then protein is not a problem. So conclusively, the world is not on track to end malnutrition and poverty by 2030. Nutrition, health, and the natural environment are closely linked across the life course, and confluence of crisis is impacting the world. So we have pandemics of obesity, we have undernutrition, climate change represent threats to child health. Climate change weakens food systems and increases food insecurity worldwide. Inequalities in children still exist. So we need a massive transformation of the food system, includes early life nutrition and sustainable diets to tackle climate change and to save and improve children's lives and futures. And for health professionals, yes, we can suggest a plant-based diet. We can educate our patients, the people, the families that would like to follow such a dietary plan. But we have to be really careful with the checkups and if there is need for any fortification. And just remember, when appropriately planned, a plant-based diet consisting substantially of minimally processed foods can be nutritionally adequate. So thank you for your attention and please take care of the nature.